Most founders don't think about infrastructure until it breaks. And I'm not just talking about HR infrastructure, I mean any business infrastructure that is repeatable and sustainable. And in working exclusively with small businesses for nearly 15 years, I know the first breaking point is at 15 employees. That's when the chaos stops feeling manageable and starts feeling like it is winning. Here's what I wish someone had told me earlier. None of the structure stuff has to wait until things fall apart. I started stepping out of client work at 6 employees. Not because I read it in a book or someone told me to, but because I could see it in clients who were already larger than I was. Working with them allowed me to see where things were heading if I didn't start stepping out right now. And that one decision bought me time that most founders at 15 are desperately scrambling to find. So if you're watching this, you have around 15 employees and you're already in the thick of this video is going to show you what's breaking and how to fix it. But if you're watching and you're at 6 or 8 or 10 employees and things still feel manageable, you're going to want to pay close attention because the founders who handle 15 employees well didn't figure it out at 15. They started earlier. There are 5 things that need to be in place before you hit 15 employees. Let's get into them. First, the CEO needs to be above the business. The pitfalls of the CEO still being in the weeds at 15 employees are mostly obvious. You have decision bottlenecks, everything routes back to you, everything lives in your head, and no one else can do it like you can. But that is a symptom and not the actual problem. The real problem is that if you are in the weeds, no one is running the business. At 15 employees, you likely still don't have a C-suite. You have mostly strong individual contributors you tapped on the shoulder and made leaders. They're good people, but they're not your strategist, and they are definitely not thinking about where this company needs to be in 3 years. That is your job, and if you're still in the weeds every day, that job isn't getting done. Many of our client founders around this number of employees tell us they feel genuinely lonely. I know I certainly feel that way at times. And while it isn't a good feeling, it is a sign that they have stepped above the business into a CEO role and out of that contributor one. Because they feel like they no longer have peers inside the company, where when they were in the weeds, they still did. They don't have an executive bench to push back on ideas or carry strategic weight. It is lonely, but the alternative is staying in the weeds and having the business suffer for it in the long run because no one is acting as the architect. And at 15 employees, no one steering the ship is going to cause it to sink really fast. I made this shift at 6 employees, and it honestly felt a bit early, and it probably looked unnecessary from the outside. But I saw how hard it was the longer a founder waited to get out of the day-to-day. So the question isn't whether you need to get above the business. It's whether you do it before 15 or after. Number 2, HR infrastructure needs to exist before 15 employees. By this point, inconsistent payroll isn't an inconvenience anymore. It's a retention problem. If checks are late, if PTO rules are unclear, if your leave policy is basically ask me and we'll figure it out, people are going to notice that. And what they notice is that the foundation isn't solid. You need consistent payroll systems, structured onboarding, written policies, and clear compliance basics. I know that sounds like corporate infrastructure you're not ready for yet, but it's not. It's the bare minimum. Growth past this point requires stability, and stability requires structure. Without it, you end up with a revolving door. And people aren't leaving because they don't believe in the vision. They're leaving because the day-to-day feels chaotic. None of this is complicated to put in place at 8 or 10 employees. It becomes a significant problem to retrofit at 15 when you're already losing people. The crazy thing about this one is that I say it should be in place at 15, yet we see clients come to us at 20, 30, and even larger without this. There is so much liability at stake here, not just in legal liability, but in reputation, credibility, and your ability to attract and retain talent. The longer you wait to put these very basic things in place, the more likely that you are building compensation and benefit structures that are not sustainable. The more likely you are to have inconsistent treatment and practices that are costing your business way more than they need to. Now, look, you waiting until 25 or more employees means great job security for me and my business. It is built around you waiting. But I wouldn't be mad about you doing it earlier so that at 25, you can focus on true employee growth and not the basic stuff that should have been in place 10 or 15 employees ago. Number 3, roles really need to be specialized before this point. In a small business, wearing multiple hats at 8 people, 10 people is normal. It can even be energizing and a bit of a competitive advantage in the talent market. My employees will tell you that I use the fact that they will learn more in my firm than they ever will in an in-house role as a selling point in the recruitment process. They will also tell you that is not fluff. You can learn a tremendous amount working in a super small business. Under 15, that's fun and it's exciting. No one has to stay in their lane. They can all be managing multiple roles that they would never have had the opportunity to touch at a larger org. But at 15 employees, having everyone wear multiple hats starts to become dangerous. The work is heavier, the pace is faster, and if someone is genuinely covering 3 roles, they're doing 2 of them poorly and burning out on the 3rd. I see this so much. The finance person who's also doing HR because they're good with people, or the ops hire who somehow become the de facto marketing coordinator. When a role isn't someone's primary focus, accountability gets fuzzy. You have all these dropped balls because it's easy to say, I didn't know that was my responsibility, or I had no idea how to do that. The earlier you start giving people defined lanes, the less you have to unwind later. Now, I understand the payroll implications of what I'm asking. At 15 employees, you still may not have the revenue to hire directly for all the roles you need. And you still need people to wear multiple hats. But if roles aren't specialized at 15, your payroll efficiency is suffering either way. You're either paying for headcount that's duplicating effort, or you're paying people to do jobs they weren't hired for and getting diminished output on both. Either scenario is a payroll problem. You're just not getting full value from what you're spending. Which brings me to my next point. Financial visibility needs to keep pace with headcount. Definitely by 15 employees, payroll is your dominant expense line. Benefits start compounding. Every labor decision now materially affects your margin, and yet most founders at this stage are still hiring reactively. Someone's overwhelmed, so you post a job. But here's what I see happening. A lot of those hires aren't solving a true headcount problem. They're solving a structure problem or an accountability problem or a training problem. Someone isn't performing, so instead of addressing it, we're going to hire someone we hope will actually do it better. A process is broken and creating extra work, so instead of fixing the process, we hire someone to absorb that extra work. We throw people at problems that people can't actually fix. And the dangerous thing about that pattern is that it feels like progress. Headcount goes up, so it looks like the business is growing. But your margin is compressing. Your payroll to revenue ratio is moving in the wrong direction. And the underlying problems, they're all still there. They're just way more expensive now. Before you post any role, you need to be asking, is this actually a hiring problem? Or could it be a process problem, a performance problem, a training problem that I'm trying to solve with a salary? Because if it's the latter, the hire is not going to fix it. It's just going to cost you more while you wait to find that out. And then you need to be modeling the hires that are legitimate. What's your revenue per employee? What's your payroll to revenue ratio? What actually happens to margin if you add another role? If you build this discipline at 8 or 10 employees, it becomes second nature by 15. If you don't, every hiring decision just adds weight that will eventually drag you down. Number 5, hiring standards need to be defined before 15 employees. So let's just say that you decided you do need to hire. How you do that at 15 employees matters a lot. Early on, you wanted great people, you just couldn't always afford them. And that's fine. You do what you have to do to get the business off the ground, and sometimes that means compromising on quality. But as the business accelerates and starts feeling chaotic, there's real pressure to hire fast just to stop the bleeding. So you rush this process. You compromise on skills because you just feel like you need bodies. You skip defining what success in the role actually looks like, and you make rash decisions, or you push through a less than thorough interviewing process because time is ticking. And every compromised hire compounds the operational instability you're trying to solve. By 15 employees, you must have a defined skills framework for the roles you're hiring into. But the time to build that framework is before the pressure hits. Because when you are hiring reactively, you don't have the headspace to build a process properly. Speed definitely matters in a small business, but quality in hires has to come first. The cost of a bad hire at this stage is much higher than the cost of moving a little slower. I always hear hire slow and fire fast, and I don't really subscribe to either because time shouldn't be the measurement in these cases, not in a small business where so much is at stake. Thoroughness is the measurement. Clarity around what you actually need in the role is the measurement. Hiring the person who can really help you achieve your goals is the measurement. Of all the HR processes small businesses take lightly, hiring cannot be one of them. Not when one bad hire can change the entire dynamic of your business. Here's the thing about 15 employees. Effort alone is no longer enough. You can outwork a lot of problems at 5 or 8 people. You cannot outwork structural gaps at 15. The founders who navigate this stage well aren't smarter or better resourced. They just started building earlier. They got above the business before they had to. They put the HR basics in place before someone quit over them. They defined roles before accountability broke down. That's the advantage available to you right now if you're not at 15 yet. And it's exactly the kind of advantage that compounds. In the next video, we're looking at what needs to be in place before you hit 25, and the stakes get meaningfully higher at that number. If you aren't already subscribed, now would be a good time to do so. Imagine a business where you get ahead of breaking points instead of reacting to them. One where you build your business intentionally, not just by happenstance. Let's build that.